So, you want a BMW S1000RR. I think I know what you're all about. You only want one thing, and it's disgusting. You want to dive headfirst into the Bavarian deep end. You want 200 horsepower, winglets, and launch control, all wrapped up in the most clout-demanding bike on the market. This bike spec sheet essentially reads like the World Superbike homologation rules. You take one look at this thing, and you'd think it would try to kill you even if you just looked at it wrong. But that's the thing, the S1000 isn't that bike at all, because for all the performance on tap, this is pretty much the easiest way to experience 200 ponies. There's a reason all these Biketokkers are able to rip power wheelies on the highway and then make it home unscathed to enjoy some nice warm bagel bites that their mom cooked up for them in the air fryer. Thanks, Mom. This is a bike that's been engineered, refined, and optimized to make something completely unreasonable feel almost reasonable. Sure, it's ridiculously fast, but it's also crazy predictable, controlled, and strangely approachable for what it is. Now, that sounds like a good thing, but it does raise some questions. Shouldn't a superbike scare you a little bit, demand your respect, make you feel a little devious? The S1000RR raises the question of what happens when a superbike doesn't do those things. Let's talk about it. Now, before you start looking at all the Motorrad financing options and M-package farkles, because let's be real, nobody on TikTok actually owns these things outright, we need to further understand this bike's place in the segment. Because whether you like it or not, it does exist in a very unique position in the category. Historically, leader bikes were not forgiving. They were peaky, temperamental, and brutally fast. If you misjudged your throttle input when exiting a turn, the bike would buck and squirm beneath you, maybe ejecting you from the saddle in a high-side crash. These machines were not there to help you. They were there to punish you. Skill was as important as bravery on old-school leader bikes. Overconfidence was lethal. But the S1000RR flips that idea on its head. Sure, it still uses a 999cc inline 4, but BMW has worked some serious black magic to make this thing alarmingly easy to ride. The shift cam system broadens the power band, so power is spread out in a way that's more linear and predictable. It's still fast, but it's fast and clinical, like a sleek performance sedan, not chaotic and scary fast like the old turbo Porsches from back in the day. Beyond mechanical refinement, the electronics are doing much of the heavy lifting with this machine. You could say it has full-blown rider aids. Of course, you have standards like ABS, traction control, and wheelie control, but the lean angle sensors controlling slip and slide control when decelerating or accelerating out of a corner give this bike that kind of superbike on rails feeling that is remarkable yet equally uncanny, sort of video game-esque. It'll correct your mistakes before you even know you made them. That's the real defining feature of this motorcycle. It's been engineered to be as close to effortless to ride as possible. But for some reason, that precision also feels like sterility. The ease of use feels like a crutch, and the image of the stereotypical S1000RR rider might be an even harder pill to swallow. So now that you've got a firm understanding of what really defines the S1000RR, let's talk about which one you should actually buy. Buying a leader bike is not for the financially faint of heart. Buying a German leader bike requires even more gumption. BMW has been iterating on this platform for well over a decade now, and unlike some of those Japanese competitors whose updates are limited to bold new graphics, thinking about Suzuki here, each generation of the S1000 has seen significant improvements. The original 2010 S1000RR was a significant game changer for BMW and the segment as a whole. I mean, it's really hard to place yourself back in time when this bike came out, but it was a really big deal. It was lighter than most of its competitors, making 190 horsepower when bikes like the Yamaha R1 at the time made just 180. BMW was frequently an early pioneer of new motorcycle technology. They were the first manufacturer to put ABS on a bike way back in the day, and the first S1000 had many technological milestones too, with early versions of TC and electronic throttle mapping. Me personally, I think the first gen S1000RR looks the best out of any of them that have come out. I think the new ones with the winglets look a little silly, so if you want the coolest looking vintage, in my opinion, with the original asymmetric headlights, it's pretty sweet. It saw an update in 2012 where the chassis was improved and it did receive those signature asymmetric headlights. They refined the platform further in 2015 with an update, and it was a little more powerful, a little bit lighter, with better fueling and much more advanced electronics. And this is where the S1000 really started coming into its own and developing its reputation as a clout bike. In 2019, this bike was in full-blown spaceship mode. The engine was updated with the shift cam technology, resulting in more power in the entirety of the rev range. The safety systems got smarter and more intuitive, and this is the generation where it really began to embody the kind of like effortless superbike attitude. Okay, so here's where the S1000 gets a little different over a lot of other leader bikes, because BMW loves trims and options. The base model costs just shy of 20 grand for the 2026 model year, but options can take it well beyond the $30,000 price range. There's the premium package, the dynamic package, and of course, the coveted M package. Carbon fiber wheels, billet rear sets, lightweight battery. This is all top of the line stuff, but let's keep this in perspective. In its simplest form, it's a 205 horsepower superbike with superb technology. What are you really trying to accomplish with carbon fiber wheels? This is when BMW owners become silly stereotypes of themselves. What they'll be willing to spend on Farkles make KTM power parts purchasers look like penny pinchers. The only one who will be able to tell the difference if you splurge for the M package is your bank account and your Instagram followers. You're not really going to have an improved riding experience, even up to about 6/10 on your weekend rides through local twisties. If you're trying to get into the S1K ecosystem without having to sacrifice your firstborn child to Krampus, you should probably check out the used market. But buying used S1000RRs create their own, let's say, unique set of challenges. Unlike buying a clap Japanese sport bike that you can safely assume has been dropped, abused, and neglected by 6 different owners and never had the valves checked in the 50,000 miles of ownership, the S1000RR often leads an easier life. But only sometimes. You got one end of the spectrum, right? It's like the older, wealthier owners. I've seen these guys all over Austin here. I've unfortunately had to interact with them many, many times at LCR. The dentists, the lawyers, the ones who bought one in the midst of a midlife crisis and barely ride the damn thing. These bikes will spend most of their lives collecting dust in a garage, maybe being ridden to lunch on a couple of Sundays so they can show it off to their buddies and seem much more cool and adventurous than they really are. This is the type of guy who is definitely changing his oil based on age and not mileage, and when it's due, he trailers the bike to the dealership. These are the bikes you want. Full service records, totally stock, probably just past the break-in period. If you find one of these, I highly recommend you go ahead and just pick it up if you're really looking at it. All right, it's my favorite part of any giveaway that we do here on Yami Noob. It's when I tell you who won our most recent bike. Jay in Oklahoma took home the Moto Guzzi V7 Sport we recently wrapped up. Here he is enjoying life, looking wonderful with his Italian machine. But fear not, there is another Italian machine up for grabs on YamiNoob.co. Click the link down below, become a member today, and get your best chance to win this bike. We've done over 70 giveaway motorcycles. Why not make yourself the next winner? Click that link below, support the show. Now let's get back to it. But then, on the other side, you have the bike talk crowd. I don't know when exactly this happened, but sometime in the last 5 years, the S1000RR became the bike talk or Instagram influencer motorcycle. It's actually really annoying because this is a race-bred superbike that's just turned into a bit of a meme. In a way, it's kind of like the GT3 of the motorcycling world. Everyone wants one, but they don't know why they want one, and it's just all really annoying. It's like a cultural Ouroboros. Influencers would buy one because they know it gets clicks, so they buy one for views, and because it gets views, more people buy them, and the cycle just kind of keeps repeating itself. If this type of owner spends more time dancing on top of a parking garage with the bike in the background instead of riding it, maybe it's a good buy, because let's be real, they often don't really ride these things at their limits. But if it lived its life at Redline, bouncing off the limiter and doing power wheelies for content, then it would probably invite some unforeseen problems for the second owner, or third owner, or fourth owner. A used S1000 can either be a pampered lifestyle purchase or a social media burnout victim, so proceed with caution. Because when properly cared for, these bikes are actually pretty solid. The whole German motorcycle thing might scare some people, those who hate KTM, but I have to remind you, Germans are not Austrians. Look at a map. But these aren't some fragile hand-built Italian bikes made on a Friday afternoon after Francisco had a bottle of Chianti with lunch. BMW has been plugging away at this platform for 15 years now. They've almost pulled the Suzuki. They've just slowly changed it and refined it and kind of made it better over time. So real major catastrophic issues aren't really a concern. But that doesn't mean these things are cheap to own. A high-performance motorcycle is always going to necessitate more frequent or costly service. And motorcycles, as we often say here on the channel, are quite easy to work on, so that's an easy way to save a buck. But consumables like brake pads or tires are gonna wear out more quickly than a Japanese middleweight bike. And I would like to remind you, because I just shelled out for it, a new 200-section Super Corsa is running about $430 now for one tire. Yeah, are you sure you're about this life? Probably not. And if you do need to visit the dealer for out-of-warranty repairs, be prepared to get kicked straight in the ball sack. But hey, the waiting room will have free coffee and be perfectly air-conditioned to a nice 72 degrees. New BMWs do come with a 3-year factory warranty though, so that offers a little bit of peace of mind. Now, it's also really important to mention insurance, because the S1000RR is not going to be cheap to insure. It makes 205 horsepower and is frequently owned by young men in their 20s. What do you expect? If you're looking at the S1000RR, you're not just buying a fast motorcycle, because in this category, every bike is making 200 horsepower or more. They all have, by necessity of all that ridiculous power, a bunch of comprehensive tech packages and race-bred DNA. So the difference isn't outright performance, but personality. The closest competitor is the Ducati Panigale V4, even though they couldn't be more different. Both occupy the European flagship superbike space. Their homologated variants race alongside one another in World Superbike. And I do have to remind you that Ducati absolutely obliterates BMW every chance they get, unless they have a freak alien like Toprak on the bike. I just have to remind that. They've only won one world championship. I guess it's 2 now. Whatever. They suck! While BMW is the cold and calculated example, the Ducati is dramatic. The V4 engine feels alive and characterful in a way that the BMW just doesn't. The Ducati is louder, it's more aggressive, and frankly, it's just way, way cooler. You know, we're pasta pilled around these parts, but the Ducati Panigale V4 really is the pinnacle of the superbike category, full stop. Let's not even pretend. It's not going to be any easier to own than the BMW, but in my opinion, you get so much more in return. There is also the Aprilia RSV4. Again, V4 engine. That is the good stuff right there. It makes 220 horsepower, which is absolutely insane. It's also got a bunch of electronics, and the base model costs below $20,000 as well. Piaggio just makes all their money selling scooters, so they're able to practically give these things away for free. But if you're in the game for clout, the Aprilia doesn't have that cachet or presence that's discernible by non-riders. When people see the BMW and they don't even know anything about motorcycles, they'll recognize the prestigious aura of the brand, just like Ducati. And yeah, it's a pretty brain-dead move, but it's just like these brands equal luxury, equal expensive, and some people like owning that just for that reason. As far as Japanese bikes go, the Yamaha R1 is probably the safest leader bike you can get. It's a proven platform, awesome cross-point inline 4 sound, and normies still think R1 equals fast equals cool. You don't have to explain a whole lot about it. And sure, it makes slightly less horsepower, it doesn't have the same wow factor as some of the European bikes, but it is substantially more affordable, reliable, and will be easier to own. Then there's the Honda Fireblade, which makes well over 200 horsepower with a tune since it's so neutered here in the US, but this bike is nearly $30,000 and it doesn't have the ease of use that the S1000RR has. It's actually incredibly aggressive, incredibly peaky, and it's probably the most cantankerous Honda you can buy brand new. We had one as a giveaway bike here on the channel many years ago, and an oil line blew and it had to be fixed under warranty. I didn't have that experience with any of the other bikes I mentioned, each of which I have previously given away. So regarding performance, you're really just splitting hairs with these bikes. Like, you gotta be the type of rider that can extract that kind of performance at a racetrack, and that's like 0.1% of us, right? But as far as personality goes, they're all quite distinct, and that honestly makes the decision way easier. It's just sort of one of those, like, when you know type of situations. So, who should actually buy an S1000RR? It's not just about whether or not you can afford it, but if it actually makes sense for you. If you want superbike performance without the violence and chaos that typically occupies the category, then this is your bike. If you want something super fast and surprisingly easy to ride, this is your bike. If you have the experience, maturity, and discipline to own and care for a motorcycle like this, well, this is your bike. But if you're buying this bike for clout or to overestimate your abilities since it is so easy to ride, then you don't actually need an S1000RR. If you want a bike with emotion and charisma, this bike probably isn't for you as well. If you want your bike to feel alive and distinct while also exotic and premium, a Ducati or an Aprilia might be way more up your alley, like it is for me. If you want a low-maintenance workhorse leader bike, anything Japanese is going to serve you much better. If you spent a year on a Ninja 400 and now you want to get an S1000RR as your first real bike, don't. That's a terrible idea. Life is long. Why make it short by buying a leader bike after 1 year of riding motorcycles? You're literally going to yeet yourself into the great beyond. Now, depending on what you value, the S1000RR is a great motorcycle. If you want speed, tech, clout, and M-package farkles, look no further. There's a reason they sell a boatload of these. But maybe your taste is more aligned with mine, and I think a Ducati Panigale is a better pick. That's just my own take. So where do you stand on the great S1000RR debate? Are you a devout follower, or maybe more of a take it or leave it type of rider? Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, we have many others like it. So go and check those out when this one is over. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.